The small, private animal shelter, nestled just outside Bozeman, Montana, was shrouded in the unforgiving grip of winter. Beyond the glass windows of her office, Sarah Miller, the shelter's founder and director, watched the snow fall in silent, heavy sheets. That day, she was preparing for the task that tore at her soul the most. Her shelter, a dream built on hope and meager savings, was far beyond its capacity, forcing her to make an impossible choice. For months, the adoption rate had plummeted while the number of surrendered and stray animals never ceased. The shelter was on the brink of financial collapse, and her dream was turning into a nightmare. "Today is the last day," Sarah whispered, her voice thin with exhaustion. The paperwork on her desk listed the names of the animals scheduled for euthanasia. Among them, 2 names stood out: Bolt and Skye. The 2 Border Collies had been brought in 3 months prior. Bolt was a strong, tricolor male with an intelligent and loyal gaze. Skye was a delicate black and white female, gentle and shy, with a feathery tail that rarely stopped wagging. To preserve what little space she had, Sarah planned to observe their final moments, a painful ritual she forced herself to endure for every animal she couldn't save. She walked to the back of the shelter, to a small, isolated space they called the quiet room. It was where animals scheduled to be put down spent their last night. The moment she stepped inside, the sight before her stole her breath. In the small kennel, Bolt and Skye were huddled together, embracing each other. Bolt, much larger than Skye, had curled his body into a protective crescent, holding her as if to shield her from the world. There was no fear in their eyes, only a profound, unwavering love that seemed to fill the cold, sterile room. As Sarah approached, Bolt lifted his head, alert but not aggressive. He simply pulled Skye closer. Sarah took a deep, shaky breath. She had seen countless animals in her years of rescue work, but she had rarely witnessed a bond so deep, so visible. She re-examined their intake forms. They had been found together in the mountains, their history unknown. The only notes were that they were inseparable and showed extreme distress whenever anyone tried to part them. Sarah knelt before the kennel, her hand reaching for the latch. Just then, her cell phone buzzed violently in her pocket. It was Mike, her only part-time employee. "Sarah, you need to get over here. The dog in Kennel 10 just collapsed." Sarah abandoned her task and raced to Kennel 10. The emergency consumed the next several hours, and the euthanasia for Bolt and Skye was temporarily postponed. That night, Sarah couldn't bring herself to go home. She crashed on the worn-out sofa in her office, trying to organize her thoughts for the morning. Just as dawn began to break, a strange sound woke her. A faint whining was coming from the back of the shelter. Cautiously, she followed the sound until she reached the quiet room. In the dim light, she saw Bolt and Skye in their kennel. Bolt was gently licking Skye's face, while Skye whimpered softly. Sarah switched on her phone's flashlight. The beam illuminated something that made her gasp. Skye's belly was unnaturally swollen. At first, she had attributed it to poor nutrition, but a closer look revealed the unmistakable truth. Sarah was speechless with shock. Skye was pregnant. "How could I have missed this?" she berated herself. The initial vet check upon their arrival had shown nothing. They must have been in the earliest stages of pregnancy. She immediately opened the kennel and rushed Skye to the small clinic room. An ultrasound confirmed her discovery. Skye was carrying at least 4 puppies, and the birth was imminent. The entire time, Bolt watched Sarah's every move with sharp, protective eyes, refusing to leave Skye's side for even a second. The plan for euthanasia was instantly cancelled. Skye was moved to a special whelping kennel to prepare for the birth. Of course, Bolt went with her. That morning, Sarah called for an emergency meeting with the shelter's board of directors. She explained the situation with Bolt and Skye in detail, pleading for a special exception. But the board's reaction was cold. "Her being pregnant doesn't change the situation, Sarah," said the chairman, Mr. Henderson, his tone flat. "If anything, it makes it worse. More mouths to feed, more expenses. We are already operating beyond our means." Despair washed over Sarah, but she refused to give up. "Please, just give me some time," she begged. "I will find a solution. Please, let me save this family." The board reluctantly granted her a 2-week grace period. If she couldn't find a home for them by then, the original plan would be carried out. It was a harsh, unforgiving condition. Sarah sprang into action. She posted the story of Bolt and Skye on the shelter's social media pages and contacted the Montana Chronicle and a local news station, KTVM News, with the headline, "A Family Bound by Love." She told the world about the profound affection Bolt and Skye shared and the new lives about to be born. The initial response was slow, but 3 days later, a prominent wildlife documentarian, who happened to be passing through Montana for a project, saw her post and visited the shelter. He was so deeply moved by their story that he immediately filmed a short segment and published it on his popular channel. Today, he narrated over footage of the two dogs embracing. "I found an unbelievable story of love. Two dogs, on the verge of being put down, holding each other through their final moments. And then, a miracle, they are about to become parents." The video exploded. In just 24 hours, it surpassed 1 million views. Offers of support and inquiries about adoption flooded in from all over the country. Sarah's phone rang non-stop. The story didn't just generate clicks, it ignited the heart of the local community. Farmers arrived with donated hay and tools. The owner of the town's hardware store dropped off building supplies. A weekend volunteer day was organized to help repair and expand the aging shelter. Amidst the whirlwind of activity, Skye safely delivered 5 healthy, beautiful puppies. Throughout the entire birth, Bolt never left her side. As each puppy was born, he would gently lick it clean. A devoted and caring father. Watching them, Sarah couldn't hold back her tears. This was more than just instinct. It was, undeniably, love. The shelter was suddenly in the national spotlight. News crews arrived to cover the story, and visitors flocked to see the canine family. Sarah used the opportunity to draw attention to the other deserving animals in her care. Adoption applications poured in, but Sarah was careful. She wanted to find a home that would take Bolt and Skye together. Along with their puppies, an offer to take all 7 at once was rare. Most people were only interested in the adorable puppies. Then, a call came from a man named John Peterson, a dairy farmer from a rural part of the state. He owned a vast ranch and had a history of adopting rescue dogs. He wanted to welcome the entire family. "My ranch has plenty of space for them to run," he said, his voice warm and kind. "Most importantly, we don't break up families. What they've shown the world is precious. I want to protect that." Sarah drove to the ranch herself to see the place. It was a paradise for dogs. Endless rolling pastures, clean mountain air, and, above all, an owner who loved animals with all his heart. As the 2-week deadline came to a close, Bolt, Skye, and their 5 puppies set off for their new home. Sarah saw them off at Bozeman Yellowstone International Airport, struggling to contain her tears as she said goodbye. Just before he was led away, Bolt turned and licked her hand one last time. She almost buckled, her heart overflowing with a bittersweet mix of joy and sorrow. But the story of Bolt and Skye was far from over. Their tale continued to spread, inspiring people across the nation. In the months that followed, adoption rates at shelters nationwide saw a noticeable increase. Sarah's shelter, now financially stable from the flood of donations, underwent significant improvements. A year later, Sarah revisited the ranch in Tokachi. Bolt and Skye were thriving, surrounded by their 5 healthy, energetic offspring. The moment they saw Sarah, they bounded towards her, their entire bodies expressing pure joy. The rancher, John Peterson, laughed heartily. "These guys are the official mascots of the ranch now. We even get tourists who come out here just to meet them." Sarah noticed a small, beautifully built shelter in a corner of the property. A sign above it read, "The family home of Bolt and Skye." Inside, their puppies were resting comfortably. "We learned so much from them," John said softly, "about unconditional love, devotion, and the true meaning of family." That night, Sarah stayed in a guest room at the ranch. Before falling asleep, she gazed up at the brilliant, star-filled Montana sky. It felt as though Bolt and Skye were shining among those stars. Sometimes, the brightest light truly does appear in the darkest moments. Sarah continued to save countless animals, but the story of Bolt and Skye always held a special place in her heart. They taught her to never give up and, above all, that true love will always find a way to shine, even against the greatest odds. Several years passed. Sarah now operated her own veterinary clinic in Bozeman, with a small, modern rescue facility attached. She was still caring for an endless stream of animals, but she had made a solemn vow to herself: she would never resort to euthanasia again. Instead, she had built a vast network, working tirelessly to ensure every animal found a new home. A framed photo of Bolt and Skye hung in her waiting room. Beneath it, a small plaque read, "Never give up. Miracles happen every day." One afternoon, a frail old man leaning on a cane walked slowly into her clinic. "I heard the story of Bolt and Skye," he said, his voice raspy with age. "Is it true?" Sarah smiled gently. "Yes, sir, every word. They're living happily on a ranch now." The old man was silent for a moment, and then tears began to stream down his weathered face. "Are you all right, sir?" Sarah asked, concerned. The man pulled a faded photograph from his pocket. It showed a younger version of himself with 2 Border Collies. One of them looked remarkably like Bolt. This one, he might be Bolt's father, the old man said, his voice trembling. 3 years ago, a terrible blizzard took down a section of my fence. My 2 dogs, my only family, disappeared. I searched for them for months, but I never found them. Sarah was stunned. The timing matched perfectly with when Bolt and Skye had been found. Where did you say they were found? The old man asked. Deep in the mountains, Sarah replied. A hiker found them huddled together in the snow. The old man sighed deeply. My old place was right at the foot of those mountains. Could they really be my dogs? Or is it just a resemblance? Sarah couldn't be sure, but she wanted to offer the man some comfort. We could do a DNA test. If you'd like, I can contact the ranch and ask him to send a sample from Bolt. The old man nodded eagerly. I'll pay for everything. 2 weeks later, the results came in. Bolt was confirmed to be the son of the old man's dog, Taro. There was no genetic link to Skye, but that no longer mattered. The old man, whose name was Samuel Finch, immediately headed for the ranch. Sarah had already called John Peterson to explain the situation. The rancher warmly welcomed Mr. Finch, arranging a meeting with Bolt and his family. When Mr. Finch arrived at the ranch, a truly moving moment unfolded. At first, Bolt was wary of the stranger. But then, Mr. Finch pursed his lips and blew a unique, warbling whistle. It was a special signal he'd only ever used for his dogs. Bolt's ears shot up. He paused, looking confused for a moment, before slowly walking towards the old man. With a trembling hand, Mr. Finch gently stroked Bolt's head. Bolt leaned into the touch for a moment, then turned and walked back to Skye and his puppies. He has his own family to protect now, Mr. Finch said, a sad but proud smile on his face. Mr. Finch spoke with the rancher for a long time. He shared his life story, how much he had loved his dogs, the crushing loneliness he had felt since they disappeared. I'm all alone in the world now, he confessed. My wife passed away years ago, and we never had children. Those dogs were my only family. John Peterson listened with deep empathy. After a moment of thought, he made a proposal. Mr. Finch, if you'd like, we could always use an extra hand around the ranch. You could stay here, be close to Bolt and his family. The unexpected offer stunned the old man, but for the first time in years, a genuine light of hope returned to his eyes. Are you serious? And so, Mr. Finch began a new life on the ranch. He sold his old house, bought a small trailer, and settled into a quiet corner of the property. Every morning, he helped care for Bolt and Skye's family. While Bolt never fully left his new family's side, a special bond grew between him and the old man. Mr. Finch would often talk to Bolt. Your father was a brave dog. You know, he once saved a child who fell into the river. And your mother, she was the most loyal dog in the world. Sometimes, when he looked deep into Bolt's eyes, he felt like he could see a flicker of his old friend. That was his greatest comfort. Sarah visited the ranch from time to time. Seeing Mr. Finch, Bolt, Skye, and their family living together happily always warmed her heart. She often thought back to that night, how a single emergency had prevented her from making the biggest mistake of her life. Sometimes, the brightest light appears in the darkest moments, Mr. Finch told her one day. Bolt and Skye gave me a new life. Because of them, I found a reason to live again. Sarah smiled. They taught me a lot, too, about never giving up, and the power of love. The years rolled by, and Bolt and Skye's puppies grew into magnificent adult dogs. A few were adopted into new, loving homes, but the rancher made sure the new families could visit anytime. So, at least a few times a year, Bolt and Skye were reunited with all their children. Mr. Finch cherished his peaceful days on the ranch. He never dreamed the final chapter of his life could be so rich. The daily work gave him energy, and the family of dogs brought him constant joy. One winter day, Mr. Finch took Bolt for their usual walk. They climbed a small hill near the ranch and looked out at the majestic, snow-covered Montana landscape. The old man had to stop occasionally to catch his breath. I'm getting old, Bolt, he chuckled, but my time here, it's been the happiest time of my life. That evening, the old man felt an unusual weariness. He went to bed early. Bolt and Skye lay curled up on the floor of his small trailer. In the middle of the night, Bolt quietly got up and padded over to the old man's bed. He gently licked his hand. Mr. Finch was in a deep sleep, a peaceful smile on his face. The next morning, when the rancher came to wake him, he found that Mr. Finch had passed away peacefully in his sleep. Bolt and Skye were still by his bedside, sitting vigil, as if they had guarded him until the very end. Mr. Finch's funeral was simple but warm. Sarah and many others attended. Bolt and Skye stood quietly nearby, Following the old man's will, the rancher buried him on the hill with a view of the ranch. His headstone was inscribed with the words, "Held in the arms of his eternal family." Afterward, Bolt and Skye would often visit the old man's grave. They would sit there for long stretches, as if they were having a conversation. The rancher understood they needed their time, and left them in peace. More time passed, and Bolt and Skye grew old themselves. Their coats became flecked with white, and their steps grew slower. But the love between them never faded. They continued to rely on each other, sharing every moment together. On a calm spring day, the rancher noticed that Bolt and Skye hadn't moved from the old man's grave all day. When he slowly approached, he found the two of them, curled up together, having passed into an eternal sleep. Their bodies were wrapped in a final, gentle embrace, just as Sarah had first seen them in the quiet room all those years ago. With tears in his eyes, the rancher called Sarah. "Bolt and Skye have passed on together," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "They loved each other until the very end." A deep sadness washed over Sarah, but at the same time, she felt a small sense of comfort. They had never been separated, not even in their final moments. The rancher buried Bolt and Skye next to the old man. Their headstone was simple, bearing only the words, "Bolt and Skye, an eternal love." The story of Bolt and Skye became a legend. Their tale of love, loyalty, and their peaceful death together touched the hearts of countless people, inspiring them to donate to shelters or adopt rescue animals of their own. Sarah's shelter was officially renamed the Bolt and Skye Sanctuary. Its mission was to end euthanasia and find a new home for every animal. She expanded her network, gathered more supporters, and fought to give every rescue a second chance. One day, a young couple visited Sarah's sanctuary. They had been deeply moved after hearing the story of Bolt and Skye. "We want to adopt 2 dogs like them," the woman said, "2 who love each other deeply. We want to give them the kind of loving, peaceful home that Bolt and Skye found." Sarah smiled and led them inside. Among the many dogs, one kennel caught their eye. Inside, 2 Border Collies were huddled together. One was a tricolor, reminiscent of Bolt, and the other was a black and white with markings similar to Skye's. "They were rescued together a little while ago," Sarah explained. "They probably grew up in the same home. They're always together, just like this." The couple fell in love at first sight. They knelt before the kennel and gently held out their hands. The dogs were cautious at first, but soon leaned into their warm touch. "What are their names?" the man asked. Sarah thought for a moment. "They don't have official names yet, but in my heart, I've been calling them Cosmo and Luna." The couple looked at each other and smiled. "We'll take them." As the couple left with Cosmo and Luna, driving off to their new home, Sarah watched them go, a familiar warmth spreading through her chest. This was the true legacy Bolt and Skye had left behind, a legacy of love, hope, and the preciousness of a second chance. That night, Sarah sat in her office, looking out at the night sky. Countless stars looked down on her in silence. She smiled and thought to herself, "Your story doesn't end, it just begins a new one." And that was the undeniable truth. The story of Bolt and Skye brought a new light of hope to countless rescue animals and moved the hearts of so many people. Their love transcended even death, continuing to have an impact on the world. The Bolt and Skye Sanctuary grew, with branches in several regions, run by countless dedicated volunteers. The ranch in Montana also transformed, with the rancher turning part of his land into a sanctuary, creating a beautiful garden around the graves of Bolt, Skye, and the old man. It was called the Garden of Love, a place where visitors could hear their story and be deeply moved. 10 years later, Sarah was a mature, respected figure in the world of animal welfare. She still worked tirelessly for animals, but now spent more of her time educating the next generation. At a lecture at a university, a student asked her, "Of all the thousands of animals you've saved, why is the story of Bolt and Skye so special?" Sarah paused, reflecting for a moment. Then, she answered, her voice soft but full of conviction, "Because they taught me the most important lesson of all, that when we are in our darkest, most difficult times, sometimes just having someone by your side is what gives us the strength to carry on." Bolt and Skye lived for each other, and that love saved them. And in the end, their love became powerful enough to save countless other lives. That night, Sarah dreamt of Bolt and Skye for the first time in a long while. In her dream, they were running freely through a lush green pasture, as fast as the wind. The old man was with them, smiling peacefully, surrounded by their happy, healthy puppies. Everyone was blissfully happy. Bolt ran to Sarah and licked her hand, as if to say thank you. His eyes held a calm, deep light. When Sarah woke up, a single tear was tracing a path down her cheek. But a gentle smile was on her face. She looked out the window and thought, yes, you two are still together somewhere. Happy forever. And it was the undeniable truth. The love of Bolt and Skye had transcended death and would last for eternity. Like the stars shining in the night sky, their story would continue to cast a light in the darkness, giving people hope and courage forever.